We'll just give everyone a few more seconds and we'll get going here. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brian Schmidt. I am the executive director of Kids Win Missouri, and I'm here with my colleague and partner, Robin. Robin, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks for joining. My name is Robin Phillips. I'm the CEO of Child Care Aware of Missouri.
Yeah, and so we are here today just to share more information about Childcare Works. It is a Missouri's cost sharing program to support families in accessing affordable childcare and help employers with supporting their workforce. So, just to give everyone a brief overview of our agenda today for the next 45 minutes or so. We are going to tackle why childcare is a challenge for employees and employers. We'll cover what is Childcare Works and how does it work. Um, share some information about different Childcare Works models that are available, including Duo Share, TriShare, and QuadraShare, and kind of explain what is involved with each of those models. There's a federal tax credit that can be utilized to help support employers in offering a child care benefit. So we're going to share some more information about that. And then we'll kind of go through some uh, real numbers and financials from employers who are participating in Child Care Works, and you can kind of see how the financial mechanics of the program works. And then we're happy to answer any questions about the program or what's involved. So, but really, really excited everyone's here today and really excited to share this information. So, just some information about why childcare is a challenge for employees and why it's a challenge for employers. Um, so, 67% of Missouri's children have all of their available parents in the workforce, but the childcare supply to support them just isn't there all the time. So that Child Care Aware of Missouri did this research last year about childcare deserts and where and the availability of childcare across the state. So that map on the left covers all childcare slots. And you can see that about 68% of Missouri counties are considered a childcare desert, where there are so few options that there are more than three times as many children as there is licensed childcare. And then if you really drill down on the data and look at infants and toddlers, infant and toddler care is often much more expensive than other types of care. 97% of Missouri counties are considered a child care desert for infants and toddlers. And then kind of looking at the different why is childcare so unaffordable for families? The average monthly cost of full-time childcare in Missouri is just over $1,000 per month, so about $12,000 per year, which can rival rent and mortgage payments, and can be more than in-state college tuition at our colleges and universities. Um, if you look at childcare as a share of Missouri household income for families with um, two parents, it can be about 11% of their income. For single parent families, it can make up 36% of their income. And the federal government defines affordable as it costing no more than 7% of a family's income. So you can see that families are stretched pretty thin. And this has some implications for employers and their workforce. Uh, 58% of parents who left
I'm
their
good. How are
jobs
you doing?
cited inability to um, find childcare as a reason for why they left. About
Yeah.
70% of working parents' workdays have been impacted when childcare falls through. And a couple of years ago, the Missouri Chamber of Commerce did an analysis and found that Missouri loses about $1.3 billion per year in economic losses due to inadequate childcare and childcare breakdowns. So it is an issue that really does impact employers and the economy throughout Missouri. So what is Childcare Works? It's a public-private cost sharing program that helps facilitate the sharing of costs between families, employers, philanthropy, and the public sector. Um, have worked very closely with communities all across Missouri to help shape and design this program and also help implement it. And so the program can support home-based, center-based, school-based, and faith-based providers. All the funding flows through a single intermediary, which is Child Care Aware of Missouri. And that makes it very easy for providers to accept payment, makes it easy for everyone participating to kind of go through one platform that kind of keeps track of it all. And then as a result, families can gain access to stable and affordable childcare options. So why are employers interested and why are they getting involved? 86% of working parents are more likely to stay with their employer because of childcare benefits. So big retention benefits. Working parents can avoid up to 16 absences each year when they have reliable childcare. So really increasing productivity. 78% of working parents report positive career impacts, including promotions and new opportunities because of childcare benefits. And then the ROI companies that a group, Boston Consulting Group, did analyze in 2024 saw a positive ROI. And so, it really kind of makes a lot of sense to offer a childcare benefit to employees. I'm going to turn it over to Robin to kind of cover some information about the different childcare works models that are available.
Okay, great. Thank you. So when we speak of childcare works, envision it as an umbrella with different types of cost share models that fall under that umbrella. The initial one that kicked this off in Missouri is a tri-share. So I'm going to start in this middle lane of my highway map. And I built this highway map because we, people like me, view childcare as opportunity infrastructure. It's opportunity for families to earn income, participate in the labor force, and all three of these lanes can generate towards the same outcome of increased workforce recruitment and retention. So the model that initially stood up in Missouri is a statewide tri-share. So envision a three-legged stool. It has funding from House Bill 5 in it, and additional funding is we expect there to be additional funding, but that won't be a done deal until the budget is signed. But the way that this is rolling out, so you have a three-legged stool, the employer contributes to a portion of the child care market rate. It's important to understand market rates vary by demographic areas of the state. What is $1,000 a month here might be $1,800 a month over here. And so the employer, though, is always contributing to a 30% of the average cost of care in that area, that demographic area where they're located. The middle leg of this stool happens to be House Bill 5 state money. But keep in mind, if you're a community member or someone who's just trying to understand the model, this second leg of the stool can be funded by local public money, economic development grant, or other dollars. In this particular model we're talking about, TriShare with state funding, it is available to families who make a range in a household income. And Brian, if you wouldn't, when we get off this screen share we're back. Well, I guess you can drop it in chat now. There are ranges of household incomes, and we have a lot of this data already on the Child Care Works website. But this is for employees whose household income ranges between 100% federal poverty level, 555% poverty level. And that varies by family size, so on and so forth. This system is entirely built to help you figure that out. So, employers on the call, you do not have to, your HR people do not have to get into the weeds of every single individual. They probably don't want you to know their entire household income. So that all comes through the system and is processed and calculated and helps them understand what portion of state funding they can access. And then they as the employee pay for the balance. So in this model, they could have anywhere from about 40% of their child care underwritten by these two legs, all the way up to almost 70% of their child care underwritten, again, dependent upon household income. Over here in this lane on the left, duo share, employers can maybe they have a few employees and they all make too much money to qualify for the tri-share. They could offer duo share. And we do have some employers now that have onboarded into this program that have some of their employees in tri-share and other employees in duo share. And this is just where an employer is contributing a percentage or a flat rate and sharing the cost with the employee. Our entire system manages all of that as well. And then to the far right here, we have an innovative model called a QuadraShare. And this is happening in St. Louis right now. We had, somebody always has to go first in these things, right? Employers had to go first. And now we have a foundation that has gone first and contributed, making this four legs of funding where the foundation wraps around the employer's contribution. So in this model in St. Louis, if you're on St. Louis, if you're from here, sorry, I'm from St. Louis, but if you're listening in from St. Louis, this is prime because in that 30% contribution in this particular model, it's only 15% because the foundation wraps around with the other 15%. So if you're in St. Louis or know people, this is a prime opportunity to be involved in that. So just understanding there are three different lanes and they can have different types of funding so we can have multiple models. And so just again, for community people, making sure you just don't get stuck in one, that there can be other ways to participate or fund it in a community so it's customized. So we'll shift to the examples. Or no, you're going into the 45 tax credit. Let's do
Yeah,
that
thanks,
first.
Robin. Just to give everyone an update, I included the minimum employer and community contribution rates and the state contribution rates for the TriShare program. A link to that information is in the chat. Also dropped in a list. It actually shows up as a map, and you can kind of click on locations and find who is currently participating in the Child Care Works program to get more information on what that looks like. But just kind of switching gears to the 45F credit. So this is a federal employer provided childcare tax credit. And last year, Congress made some changes and enhanced that program, and really made some changes that are complementary to the Child Care Works program. Some of the biggest changes is they increased the credit percentage from 25% to 40% for larger for-profit businesses. And then if you're a small business, which is defined as employers with less than a 5-year average of an annual 31 million in gross receipts, you're eligible for a 50% tax credit. They also increased the amount of credits that businesses could claim from 150,000 to 500,000 for large businesses and 600,000 for small businesses. And they also included a provision that allowed employers to participate in programs like Child Care Works, where they have a contract with an intermediary And then that intermediary has a contract with providers and can help facilitate the employer contributions and pay them to the providers that would all be eligible for the credit. So really, really excited about that change. Can really make a big difference for employers who are kind of on the cusp of trying to decide if it could be a good fit because it really increases the ROI for employers. Separately, the administrative fee that's associated with the program is eligible for a 10% credit. So the hard, more direct service costs are eligible for that 40 or 50. The administrative fee, because it's a resource and referral fee, is eligible for a 10% credit. And then just as an example of how that works, without the 45F credit, just an example of an employer contributing $300 per month. With that 40% credit, that drops to a net cost of $180 because they're eligible to claim $120 in tax credits on their federal taxes. So effectively, the federal government is kind of sharing in this cost with the employers. But I'm going to turn it back over to Robin to kind of go through some examples
Okay.
of kind of real numbers, real financials of folks participating.
Yeah, so these two examples, the first one comes from southern part of our state, and the second one I'm going to share with you comes from the middle part of our state. But this first one is a family-owned business pharmacy, and we can see here that the employee working there, that their total monthly cost of care is right at $1,000. And as Brian said earlier, that can compete with mortgage or rent or just a combination of lights, groceries, and gas anymore. And so it's a hardship on families, even that are working really hard. And so when this particular employee and employer came on and applied for the TRISHARE benefits, you can see that again, the behind the curtain math is that the employer is putting in a 30% contribution of the average cost of care in that demographic region. The household income of the employee is what allowed that individual to pull down another third of that payment. So, dependent again on their household income, the lower you are on that federal poverty level, so at the 150%, 155%, you're going to be able to access 40% of your cost of care, of the market rate from that bucket. Whereas someone who's making more money and, 555% FPL for a family of four is right around $183,000, they're only going to be able to access 10% of the dollars. So you can see this person, fell in between there. And then the employee picks up the balance. And so now this employee that's been paying right at $1,000 a month is now paying one third of that, putting figuratively a raise back into that employee's pocket, giving them a little bit of economic mobility and flexibility and liquidity to do other things and contribute to the economy. And then when you see from the 45F perspective, and I'm not a tax expert, Brian, you know a lot more about them than I do, but we're not claiming to be tax experts here. But when you look at the formula and what's been laid out for what we know at this point, this pharmacy would qualify in that small business category, making them eligible for the 50% of the 45F tax credit. So you see this employer's contribution and claiming 50% of that in 27 as a tax credit now brings their contribution down in half, giving that 50% ROI on their investment, on the employer's investment. And so the next slide, please. Kind of a similar situation, but a little bit different. So this is from a bank in a rural community, and we have a single parent with one child. And so the employer, again, is behind the scenes math, putting in 30% of the average cost of market rate of childcare. The individual qualified by household income and can draw down another $254 in support, leaving this employee to pay for about 50% of their childcare, but essentially still putting a figurative raise back into their pocket. And these percentages here, why they're different is this is just how the forward facing math and how the childcare is split and cost shared, but the math to get to these formulas is just a little bit different. But nonetheless, this employer would likely qualify at the 40% tax rate. And so you see the return on investment on their contribution as well, and part of the tax credit they can claim in 27. So the next slide just kind of compares these side by side so you can see these numbers again. And just looking at how the tax credit applies, the net employer cost, what a parent was paying before, and now with Childcare Works, what they're paying, and just giving them some breathing room. And then for in these two examples, for less than $200 a month, net, these employers are creating meaningful change in that family's just daily livelihood and financial ability to do things and have, like I said, a little bit of breathing room. So I think that's it on those, Brian. Oh, okay. I'm going to jump here. So when, depending on where your thought process is on offering benefits as an employer or just wanting to understand more about this model, people have heard me say that you have to hear this information three, four, five, six times, and maybe even from different people. And that's okay. We're all linked arms trying to make some transformational change here in Missouri and provide an outlet for employers that doesn't necessarily have to involve on-site childcare, which a lot of employers tend to think that's the only solution, and it's not. But if you want to find out more and speak to someone locally who has boots on the ground in your county doing this work, you can click on that QR code and it will take you back to the Childcare Works website and connect you with that person. If there isn't, this is a pilot, so not every single county has a dedicated local person, but there is still someone to help you. And so if you don't see a particular name, you will come back to me at Childcare Aware of Missouri and we'll keep you moving forward in the process and understanding everything. At any point when an employer is ready to go, which might take 60 days, it might take 6 months, it might take 9 months. It's going to take smaller businesses, maybe not as much time, versus larger companies that have a lot more HR and bureaucracy things they have to navigate, or they're part of the corporate company and they have to involve other people. But at any point in time when the employer is ready, and those employers you see on that map, they've already signed the employer agreement. They have agreed to initiate and start benefits, which means that they have to set up a payment portal, which we guide people how to do that. The employees get notified of the benefit, and we provide communication and messaging and different ways in which to roll this out as a pilot in your own company. And then once all those pieces are in place, and like I said, sometimes some companies take longer than others, and that's fine. It's just keeping forward momentum. But once everything is in place, we have employee benefits that typically begin at the beginning of the month or the middle of the month, just kind of the cadence of how that works. But then I think, hearing some of these two stories and being knowledgeable of so many more, it's a pretty cool thing. I reference this whole thing as the train is here and it's time to board, because this is a way that you can truly address some workforce recruitment and retention in your company.
Yeah, thanks, Robin. So just to kind of recap, we kind of covered some of the challenges with childcare and why it is such a big challenge for employees and employers alike. Covered Childcare Works, some of the different Childcare Works models that are available, Duo Share, TriShare, and QuadraShare. Um, some information about the 45F federal tax credit. Um, Covered two instances around what the financial mechanics look like for both employers and then also for families. And with that, we're just happy to answer any questions that anybody might have. Just to let everyone know, we are going to follow up with the slide deck, the recording from this afternoon's session. We have some other materials as well that can be really, really helpful. But happy to try to answer any questions if there are any.
If anybody's willing to drop in the chat or come off of mute and just share too, like what prompted you to join today? Are you having these conversations in your company? Or you just at a curiosity standpoint, which is totally fine? Um, or are you truly seeing the impact of just labor force participation and retention? Don't be shy. There's no silly questions. I ask them all the time. Any ahas or takeaways? Uh, where are you located, Morgan? Morgan says she's a counselor at a career and technology center, and they are exploring how it will affect uh, our CDA leading program. And then Nick is asking, is there a limit to the number of children per employee? I believe the answer to that question tax-wise is yes, but Brian, you may be better equipped to answer that.
So, I think the employer has the flexibility to kind of do whatever it would like to do in supporting their workforce. I think there are the kind of tax advantaged benefits are limited in terms of the amount of benefit that an employer can provide an employee where they don't have to pay federal income tax on it. That's $7,500 per employee. So if they provide a childcare benefit that exceeds $7,500 per employee, then it becomes taxable to the family. Um, the amount of the excess is taxable to the family. Outside of that, I mean, there's really not like limitations, especially on the duo share element of it. I think the for the tri share component of it, there is there's a limit on how much state dollars are available statewide for the whole program. We're not to that point yet. So, but yeah, no like strict limitations on it, but there are some limitations just on tax stuff that you just want to factor in.
Great question, though. Really good question. So just to reiterate, qualifying programs are those, so childcare programs that can receive childcare works payments for this TRISHARE are those programs, childcare programs that are licensed, or they must be registered by the state of Missouri to receive subsidy. So we do have faith-based childcare programs that are called licensed exempt. We have legally unlicensed family childcare in Missouri. And so there's a variety of options. It's just the fact that registering for state subsidy has some baseline safety measures, includes background checks on the people there and some additional safety training. So in some cases for those programs, like if a licensed exempt facility doesn't want to register to become registered for subsidy, then they could just do a duo share model with employers who take their children to that facility, um, because there's no state dollars involved. So just know there's it's not a it's a cookie cutter in the sense of methodology, but there's still some creative ways to address different situations. And so one of those is, we have a city government who came in as tri-share, but then had employees with children who were going to some of those programs that weren't registered and didn't meet the criteria. So then they decided, oh, well, we can do duo share for them. And for those over here, we can do tri share. So just know that that's becoming a little more common as we continue to educate employers about, a variety of options. I'm reading Morgan's comment. Yeah, no, Morgan, I mean, that's a fair comment, and I appreciate you bringing that to light. You know, um, there's a lot of pieces to the childcare crisis. There's a lot of puzzle pieces, and this is a big one, but it's not the entire thing. And so that's why it's important that from a systems perspective, that we're addressing affordability, but that we're addressing accessibility, and that we're, you know, maintaining some level of quality, because workers who are on the manufacturing line are going to not be preoccupied if they know their children are in safe and hopefully quality environments. So it's important that all these things continue to push forward to create transformational change in a childcare system. But the fact that this particular model of innovation for cost share models is getting a lot of national attention, and other states are wanting to know what we're doing, but it's not the panacea. It's not going to fix everything, but it's a huge step in a better and forward direction for sure.
Yeah, and I will say that having a program like Child Care Works does kind of communities and even the state is better equipped with the information about what the demand might looks like, so that it can really help us build supply, build the pipeline of new of the early childhood workforce. So I think it can be really, really helpful in that.
Yeah.
And
So, answering Nick's question here, the employer decides who they want to offer the benefit to. And, a lot of employers bring up, and even just community intermediaries who are engaging employers, or, I was talking to an economic developer in another county the other day, and she said these are common questions around the equity issue, and how do you make these slots available when you can't serve everybody? And so when people are onboarding and having these conversations with community intermediaries and or Child Care Aware of Missouri, we provide examples. But essentially, if the employer decides they just want to offer it for people that have 1 year of tenure versus 6 months, or it's for the employees that have children under the age of 2, because infant toddler care is very expensive, more expensive than 3 to 5 year olds. Um, it could just be to one office, one plant, whatever it is, the employer decides where they're going to extend the benefit.
yeah, I think there might be limitations where employers can't discriminate against a protected
Mhm.
class.
Right.
But outside of that, I think there's a lot of flexibility in who they decide to offer benefits to.
Uh, Morgan, I haven't heard anything yet, but that doesn't mean, I mean, I don't talk to everybody, so I don't know. And I don't know, Brian, if you've gotten any of this feedback or heard this in any of the other conversations. But I have not.
I haven't heard of that either.
I mean, I think Morgan just, I mean, could it happen? Is it right? Is it wrong? Is it this? Is it that? But I think it's about encouraging employers to reevaluate their benefits packages, that we have a lot of generations in the workforce and there's a variety of needs, but not in any conversations that I had has anyone said that. The only one I've and it's not even related to that, but the only one I've heard was talking to a manufacturing company, and they have office staff and then they have production line staff, right? And they were talking about how they're asking for raises, and the GM that I was meeting with said, if I give raises, then I have to raise the price of the products that we make. And in order for me to stay competitive with products, like, so she was kind of feeling like kind of pulled between, she's like, this could potentially be a strategy for some on how to not instead of a raise, but when somebody's income goes to from $1,000 outward for childcare to then only paying 300 and they're essentially getting almost $700 back into their family budget, that is a form, and that's why I just say figuratively speaking, that's a raise. But I would hope that employers would be equitable and not making it the only way they address raises. But that's up to every, individual employer or company. But
And
good
I think
question.
just going back to Nick's question, there are, especially around the federal tax credit and also the kind of the dependent care assistance program benefits, which is kind of how you can provide the benefit tax-free to employees. You also can't discriminate in favor of highly compensated employees. So just be aware of that. And there's like a IRS test that kind of helps you decide if that is or is not happening.
I think Morgan, and sorry, we're kind of flip-flopping back and forth, but as I kind of digest on Morgan's comment, just being an employer here at Child Care Aware Missouri, and granted, we're nonprofit, so can't even, it's not apples and oranges to a corporation or manufacturing by any means. But when we talk about salaries and compensation packages and someone being hired having a benefits package, it has a cash value. So could someone technically say for, salaries for this are in this range if you receive this benefit, because it all has a cash value. But I think if people are, again, we haven't heard any examples. We're just hoping employers would be methodical about that and not making any kind of knee-jerk reactions. Monica. So it is a little heavier on the front load, because there are conversations that have to happen with people at the company, whether that's whomever has the ability to pull the levers and sign the agreements. And sometimes presidents and CEOs designate somebody to do that. And sometimes it has to funnel up to that person to make that decision. So sometimes those conversations move real slow and sometimes they move a little quicker. And so we're trying to meet people where they're at. But once everything is set up, so say in the first 60 days, first 60 or 90 days, like once someone's decided and everything, the ball starts moving, you can imagine over the next 60 or 90 days, we're getting everything in place. And then that's it. There's, gonna need to be communication. The employer who's contributing funding into Tutris has access to their own dashboard, so they can access it at any time to see how the money is being spent, who it's going to, who they're supporting. But it's not intended by any means to increase HR admin burden at anyone's company. It's really built to reduce that and to take something off the HR person's plate in a company. It just does require some front end time to get things in place. We have all the supports to do that.
Yeah, and I should also want to add that we have resources for employers to use in doing like an employee survey to figure out how many of their employees might have a need for a childcare benefit. Um, and also help have some resources that employers can use to help make their employees aware that they are offering this benefit. We have kind of resources that are available and contacts in communities that are going to employer sites and are helping employees with the onboarding process. So there is a fair bit of support that is provided. And what we try to do is try to walk alongside the employer throughout the entire process and try to help them navigate what type of benefit would work best for them.
Really good questions. Thank you. We have about 4 minutes left, and we're happy to yield that time back. We just want to make sure we've given everyone time to get their thoughts out. Anyone who hasn't asked a question or made a comment, you're certainly welcome to do so. Give it another 15 seconds in case somebody's typing something. I think if you just want to reiterate, Brian, the follow-up stuff to expect, just an
Yes.
email.
Yeah, so probably tomorrow we're going to send an email with recording from today's session. We'll include the slides. We'll include some kind of resources that can provide some additional information and some of the links that we shared to the rates that we talked about and the employer page, and some contacts if you want to learn more. So
Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you spent some time and took a minute to learn a little bit more, and feel free to reach out to either one of us, or particularly to the Child Care Works website to get more information and connect with somebody in your community. And maybe we'll see you again.
thank you.
Thanks. Bye.